Start.
My name is Jusung Park. Today is April 12, 2022. The time is 13:33. This interview is being virtually conducted and recorded. I am interviewing Mr. Thomas Lemmer, who was born on February 6, 1951 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and served in Vietnam War between July 10, 1969 to June 15, 1973. Mr. Lemmer was a third-class petty officer in Navy and was also a chief at Coast Guard and served as an electrician. This interview is sponsored by the Belter Memorial. First of all, thank you, Mr. Lemmer, for responding to this interview. Are you sure today?
Okay, no problem.
All right, I'll be asking questions about your experience in military and your service.
Okay.
So the first question is, what were you going to do before your service? Were there any plans?
My father was more my inspiration. He was a World War II Navy veteran and served on destroyers in the Navy. So that was more what got me going. In addition, I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do coming out of high school. And I knew that these services provided a lot of different training in different areas, and it was a good opportunity to explore those.
That's interesting. So you're enlisted to the Navy, right, sir?
Yes, I enlisted. Yes, I was, well, yeah, I was just 18 when I enlisted.
So your father was to influence you to enlist into the Navy and Coast Guard?
Well, no, he didn't push me. It was my decision, and Vietnam was going on at the time, and just wanted to contribute to the efforts of United States.
All right, so beginning of your military experience, how was your training at the Great Lake Naval Station? How you adapted to military life? It should have been hard from changing civilian life to military life. How did you?
Well, it was a little bit of a challenge because I had come out of high school and junior high school. I had played the trumpet and everything. And when I did go into boot camp, they put me into the band unit. So I did have it probably a little bit easier than some of the other ones. I was probably like a third seat trumpet, so they didn't need us all. So myself and one other guy many times stayed back in the barracks, and we had to clean the barracks. And once we were done, we could do whatever we wanted. Meantime, the band was marching up and down the streets, playing and practicing. So we got a chance to get over to a bowling alley and have a little fun and sometimes other officers would come by and say, "What are you doing here?" Well, we're in the band unit. We've done our job as far as cleaning the barracks, and we're told we could do what we wanted. So we did a lot.
All right. So after your training, I also heard that you trained for electricians.
When I finished boot camp, they had put me into A school, what they call A school, which was also at Great Lakes for electricity and electronics, which I believe it was about 6 or 8 week course, intensive training on a daily basis, every day of the week. And at the end of that, passed the course, then it was on to the fleet.
Was there any specific reason you started to get trained for that?
For electrician, well, that's kind of what they decided would be my best area. Although with my high school and everything, I went to a technical high school here in Milwaukee and had mechanics for 4 years and was headed to be an engine man, but they made me electrician's mate. So the difference between EN and EM.
All right. So also after you're getting trained for electricians, you also learn how to handle M16 and M45 rifles?
That was prior to being assigned to Vietnam. Uh, I was trained shooting before that in boot camp and that, but not with an M16 at that point. Leaving A school, I was sent to the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, where I did duty electrician on inactive ships. In other words, a lot of the ships that are sitting there were sealed up with only one entrance into them. And we used to maintain lighting in them and humidification systems to keep them from rusting further than what they were, until a decision was made to scrap them or whatever they wanted to do with them. So between that and we had ships, two battleships that were tied up on the Schuylkill River and one aircraft carrier, and all the planes landing at Philadelphia International Airport used the aircraft warning lights that we had on those ships to line up for the runway. So if one was burned out, they'd call and we'd have to run down there and replace the bulb.
Later, when you went on duty to Naive River in Vietnam, where the patrol boat base was, what was your impressions working with South Vietnamese troops, and were there any language barriers between them?
I saw more. I should say I landed at Tan Son Nhut in what was Saigon at the time, and saw a lot of the troops there. But upon getting transferred down to Na Bay, was going more through the streets and toward the village, a lot of country side in the area, and I guess kind of a culture shock because a lot of lean-tos, walls made out of Coke cans, and poor conditions for the people, 4 and 5 people riding on a little mini bike. You know, a lot of the sales, some little carts on the street, just totally different than we have it here in the United States.
It should have been a cultural shock for you.
Absolutely. Especially I was only about 20 years old at the time, so made it a little bit worse. But prior to going, I was sent to Coronado, which is what they call a strand down off of San Diego, for training at an amphibious base. And they had a mini Vietnamese village set up there. So we went through the training, how to for the bunkers and firing the M16s, and the big thing was at the end of the training, we were all sitting in a big auditorium, and the officer got up there and said, "Well, this is 1 in 10 of you guys are not coming back. You want to draw straws now, or would you rather take your chances?" So that'll never go away. That I'll remember forever.
I also heard at the base there were Army Razorback and Navy Seawolf helicopters.
At Na Bay, we did have Seawolf helicopters and Army Razorback helicopters. Some were stationed there. Others would just come in and take a fuel break or take a break and go to the, we had a floating barge that they serve meals on. So come and get something to eat and then take off and go back out in the field.
What were those primary functions? What did they help with in the back?
Their primary function was, first of all, to protect us at the base, because we had, I'm going to say in excess of 50 to 60 river patrol boats tied up on a T-pier. And it was also a base for refiberglassed boats that were hit and damaged, and they put them back into service. We were also a fuel depot exchange or a ammunition exchange with what were old-fashioned type open bow, or not open bow, but open to the center of them, with munitions and that they delivered up the river to the different bases.
All right, talking about the safety in the base, I also heard that you were on guard for protecting the boats being sabotaged.
I was there more so as an electrical supervisor, which I think I showed you this patch before. Where is it? There it is. which did designate me as a advisor, and would more or less teach the South Vietnamese the battery systems and the minor voltage systems on the small boats. Sit on it, went out a couple times, but nothing really where I was in imminent danger or anything, at least not my estimate.
Oh, so actually,
I don't know.
Oh, so you're not actually under under attack or something? That was not the case.
Well, we were always wearing our flak jackets and helmets all the time. Even on the base, when we went anywhere or anything, we were required to have it with us, if not wearing it. A couple times we had come under supposedly a possible attack, but the helicopters would go up, and I don't know how big their lights were that they shine down on the base, but they could see everything, and they could see any conspicuous activity. They would go across the river every night and just really blow everything up over there. Like I say, that was like a 4th of July fireworks show, just watching them when they were across the river.
It should have been enormous. So also, as you were serving in Vietnam War, you served as an electrician on the USS Farm and abroad USS Cayuga as part of the
Yes.
West Side Convoy.
I was on the USS Firm when I had left Vietnam, and that was a minesweeper. And I was on it when they had mined Haiphong Harbor in North Vietnam. And I was stationed in Long Beach, California. And all the other boats, they put a bladder on the back because they didn't have enough storage for fuel to make it between the mainland and Hawaii. So they would put what they call a bladder on the back. Well, they put it on every other ship but ours. So all the other ones got called to go sweep mines in Haiphong Harbor, and we were left behind because the Philippine Navy bought our minesweeper. Consequently, I came off of that, and then they wanted me to go to USS Midway, and I said I didn't want such a big ship. I'd rather have a smaller one, and that got me to the Cayuga, which then the Cayuga was on a mission to the South China Sea. So I caught it, was supposed to catch it in the Philippines. And when I got there, it was leaving. So they turned around and flew me to Okinawa, and I caught it in Okinawa.
That's very interesting. I heard you were injured while carrying Marines and also planes to Panama.
Well, I was injured on the Cayuga. We were underway, and that was a separate mission. We were going down to Panama to drop off some old World War II planes that were to go to a museum on the East Coast. And we were just, we weren't even quite, we're going to stop in Acapulco first. But I was going down to the engine room to do the switchboard watch and relieve a guy for lunch. And somebody had opened up a hatch at the bottom of the escape trunk, which was what they call the sea chest, that was used for cooling engines. They put water in the sea chest to cool the engines when you made a landing with the LST. And we were out at sea, and that was unspoken, but that hatch was never to be opened while we were out at sea. So whoever went down there, checked something, came up and left it open. When I came down the escape trunk, I jumped to go front of the switchboard and just kept on going right straight down.
That should have been very unfortunate.
It was not well, the fall wasn't bad. It was the ending.
All right. As you serve in Vietnam, how do you think, as overall, how do you think what America fight for overall?
Well, we got to know the people. I mean, I used to take my laundry out to the little village, and they'd do my laundry. I'd walk out there, probably 3-4 kids on each arm hanging because they liked us. And it was more helping the people. And, there were French, a lot of French descent because the French were there first in the 50s. And then we came in later on supporting the French to help keep the spread of communism.
So maybe did they show during the war that you were able to see some of the humanities between the people in the village?
Absolutely. They in fact, the women from the village would come in and they'd clean our restrooms and showers and barracks. They always liked it if we would bring them a piece of fruit or something back from the chow hall and we'd go eat or anything. They got along with all of us very well. Do have some stories, a couple of buddies of mine that had served in fire bases and that, where one guy went in a village and got his hair cut, and everything else, and straight shaver to get shaved. And the guy was a Viet Cong. They found him dead in their barbed wire because he didn't even know it. So you think about it, and you know who your enemy was over there.
All right. Also during the Vietnam War on January 23rd, 1968, North Korea captured Navy intelligence ship USS Pueblo.
Correct.
Pueblo. Why did they capture the ship? What was the specific incident?
The Pueblo was more of an intelligence gathering ship, and that was why it was targeted, so to speak. Plus, it was more of an easy target because it was not armed as well as the destroyers or the other ships in the fleet.
So it was more vulnerable to get captured. And that's not
It was more with capturing it to find out what intelligence they were gathering.
How did the event actually end?
End? Is that what you're saying? How did it end?
How did it end?
Negotiations with the government. I know they were held for quite some time before they got them released, but the negotiations with our government and the North Vietnamese, the release of the captured shipmates.
All right. Next question. I also heard there were like fake Vietnamese village used for training. What was those fake villages used for?
Mainly because the Viet Cong, basically, well, everybody over there wore like these black pajamas or silky type pants and tops. You didn't know who the enemy was or not. And that's why they set it up more like a village to help you understand what you could encounter and kind of what to look for. So we would keep our eyes open more or less. So we knew, actions, things that were going on, or if we saw anything, report it, that type of thing.
So the fake village setup did actually help you?
Well, it was a helper, yes. I mean, and again, we did have some where they'd go into villages and burn down the villages and stuff. And that was part of why, because it was after the fact of some of them being burned, that they wanted to make it more clear to us going over that, not all of these people are bad.
Right. So I believe you have a medal with you right now.
Yeah, we just, I think Gene held them up before. You probably are on the recording for it. No? Yeah, we had we showed you this one, the Vietnamese service medal. Okay. And we had the campaign medal.
What campaign was it specifically?
It was the Southeast Asia.
Southeast Asia.
Oh, the only one I didn't find, and I was going to bring too, well, this was just typical national defense. Anybody that during a wartime, United States, who went in the military, national defense was given to you automatically. The one I didn't bring was the Philippine Presidential Unit Citation, which we got with the USS Cayuga because a major typhoon had gone through and wiped out a lot of people, etc., in Luzon. And we anchored out and had just flights going back and forth and from helicopters and our small boats delivering what they called Nutribuns to the people in the Philippines to help them get through and get back on their feet from the typhoon.
I was about to ask you the questions about the Philippines. So, you are involved in helping out people during the typhoon, after the typhoon hit, right?
Correct.
Mhm.
Correct. That was it. Mainly we were carrying these bags and loading them on helicopters. And then the helicopters would take off and they'd come back. We'd restock it. Everybody, even though I was an electrician, just to get enough hands to get them loaded as quickly as possible so that they could take off again and take care of business over there.
Were there any obstacles helping out civilians at the time?
The only obstacles we had is we couldn't make water due to people floating in the water because they drowned. And with the sea suctions, you didn't want to have any of that take place. So in that case, and then because of torrential rains coming down, we actually had a bunch of us that went on the deck and just take our soap and a washcloth and took a shower right on the deck. The captain was looking and watching us and laughing. Obviously, we didn't have women in the military or in the Navy at that time on board ship. So the other guys weren't getting a shower, but we certainly were. We felt pretty good.
That's a very interesting story. Since after the Vietnam, I also heard that you had traveled all around the world during the service. Is there any specific cases you still have in your memories?
Well, the only other thing, we went to Guatemala, had a major earthquake, Managua, Nicaragua, I should say, not Guatemala. And we took down city of Los Angeles, donated fire trucks and medical equipment and things like that. We took it down to Nicaragua and pulled in and anchored there. And the Somoza was the dictator in charge in Nicaragua at the time. And we were there, I don't think we were there 12 hours, and he had come on board, they offloaded all the stuff, and then he kicked us out.
All right. I also wanted to ask you a question about the trip you had. So I believe prior to this interview, you mentioned about the diamond tour that you had.
What was that?
Diamond tour. Diamond tour.
What was it? I don't remember what.
Diamond tour at 73 June.
Oh, I about being in Hong Kong.
Yeah, and being in Hong Kong.
Okay, yes, and they call it diamond tours. They used to take you. We had a good chance. It was more like a Liberty port, so we pull in and saw all of Hong Kong. And they used to have these diamond tours where you take tour boats and go around Kowloon in the Hong Kong area, telling everybody about it. And the boats used to pull up alongside the ship to try and sell you all kinds of goods from their boats and what have you. In addition, we had experience going to what they call a Taipak, floating restaurant. Which, everybody, we had 8 guys at a table, and of all things, they bring a big bowl of peanuts and give us chopsticks. And we had more peanuts on the table and in our mouths, I think.
I also want to ask for questions with the Coast Guard duty you had. What was your primary duty for it?
I didn't really have too much with the Coast Guard, other than, we would practice with the landing ship around the Long Beach area by Camp Pendleton, the Marine base. When we were in Okinawa, I think I had mentioned that's one of the things we used to take Marines from Okinawa to Numazu, Japan for training. They'd go up on the mountain and train. And the one thing we had there, because of the protesters, and I think this might be one that you were referring to before, we actually had cameras from the TV stations and from the United States filming from helicopters because they didn't want us to put our ramp down on the beach to let the Marines go because of the conflict and the people protesting the Vietnam War. So that was, well, either get out of the way or you're going to get crushed because we're going to put the ramp down whether you want it or not. And the Japanese police and everything trying to riot gear, trying to get these people away from there. That was pretty much so it with the Japan Numazu thing, dropping off the Marines in it.
I believe you also, as a Coast Guard, you went to Arctic. Is it true? Is there any?
No, I've never been to the Arctic. No, I think that might be Mr. Weber.
Mr. Weber.
Excuse me.
Maybe it could be the most important questions as a student. What were the life lessons you have learned after doing all these services?
Well, you learn a lesson of discipline for sure. You know, you got to be somewhere at a specific time, you be there, or else you're letting them down. And your part, especially in the Navy, we rely on each other. If you don't have each other, you can't get through some of the, if you did have tragedy or something, strike on the ship, we had damage control and we all had our jobs to do. So those were things that you learned a lot more to work with each other, put aside everything else and just do your job. I don't care if you don't like the person or not, but you know, this is what your job is, do it. Also to stick to it. Look at the positive side of it instead of looking at the negatives. Try and make a positive out of it. Make it a learning situation.
So your military life actually helped you, regardless of a person who you like or not, you're able to focus on your work and deal with the problem. That's
what you had to do. Absolutely. I mean, many times we had what they call damage control stations. So I'd get stationed with another guy in what we call the after steering compartment. So there's two of us down there. We might be down there for 5-6 hours, sometimes longer. So if you don't get along with, you got a big problem. But for the most part, we all got along pretty well together. The Marines were taught to be more independent because if they lost somebody, they had to move on without getting too emotional about it.
So also as a Navy, you were able to like control your emotions, keep going on.
Well, yes, we had to too also because, you know, you're still got to do your job. But I would say that's the differences between the services. We all were trained and had to move forward and move on. But between the, say, the Air Force and the Navy, we more relied on each other to do our jobs and be like a Marine trained to fight independently.
Yeah, I agree with like all the cooperations people are making during the military service. All right. So to wrap up, so these are all the questions I have today, sir.
Okay.
Thank you for responding. Right. In closing, this has been an interview with Mr. Lemmer regarding his service during Vietnam War. My name is Jusong Park. The time is 13:02. And thank you for agreeing to this interview. And most importantly, thank you for your service.
Thank you very much, George.